right. So scientific posters are a popular method for science communication, especially at scientific conferences. So I've brought Dr. Tullio Rossi from Animate Your Science onto my channel so we can talk about posters. So yay, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, so excited to have you here. And just in case you are new to my channel, I'm Dr. Echo Rivera, and I help researchers and academics and scientists create engaging presentations. So part of helping scientists create better presentations, a lot of them will do posters. And I have a lot of people asking me how the tips apply to posters or just how to create an awesome poster. And that's not really what I help with. I really do stick with slide presentations. So that's why I wanted to bring Tullio onto the channel, because this is your area of expertise. And I just have tons of questions for you. And I'm just so excited to get started.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And I look forward to discussing posters, which is my favorite topic.
Oh, wonderful. So yeah, just go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about Animate Your Science and how you help scientists.
Well, hello, everyone. I am a marine biologist / graphic designer turned science communicator.
Yeah.
In a very concise way. So my story is that I used to be a graphic designer since I was 17. I did it for years, mostly because it was fun. And I did lots of flyers for events back then in Italy, my home country. And then I kind of parked it as a plan B career in case my marine biology career wouldn't work out. But then as I pursued marine biology and I started to do my PhD research, I realized that science desperately needs some help from design. And so I was able to use my graphic design skills and apply them to science in things like posters. And so the first post I ever made, bang, it won a poster prize right away.
Nice.
I was like, wow, okay, that's awesome. And honestly, when I looked around in the room, I realized, yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, me too. I've seen poster hauls, so yeah.
It's not researchers' fault. Like they don't get any training in poster design, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, here you go, you have a poster presentation, make a poster.
Yep, exactly.
The result is that most of them stumble on this thing with mediocre results, and then they have a bad experience and they never want to do poster presentations again. Which is wrong. So one of my missions is to fix this and clarify what a good poster should look like, what the purpose of a poster is in the first place. And then, teaching researchers some graphic design skills. And we also we have a side of the business, which is service provider. So we make posters for people. We make animated videos or infographics or illustrations, journal covers, you name it, number of things. Either we do it for you or we teach you how to do it.
Full service, which is just amazing. And I love that because, as an undergrad, I dabbled a little bit in graphic design too and web design, and I was just really interested in it and almost pursued a career in that too. So I saw myself following sort of a similar path of like merging design with science and research communication. So I think that's why I think it's so cool what you do and why we get along because it's very similar. So yeah, okay. So just a little context here. Let's set the stage. Tell us a little bit about like what a scientific poster is and why researchers make them, just in case we have someone who is, maybe they're new to this world and they just need a little background.
Of course. All right. So there is two ways a researcher can present at a conference. One is an oral presentation. The other one is a poster presentation. And of course, the oral is pretty obvious how it works. You present to many at the same time, so it's very effective. And if you're a good presenter, you can have a lot of impact in a very short amount of time. Poster presentation, however, it works differently. It's not one to many, it's one to few. There are typically at the poster session of a conference, there are many posters, sometimes dozens, sometimes hundreds. So the people that will, the attendees will be walking around these posters, looking around, and when they see something interesting, they will stop and have a chat with you. So this is the modality of presentation of a poster. Typically during the poster session, the poster presenter is there next to the poster. However, the poster also stays there after you're gone, or the morning after when you're somewhere else. So the poster kind of needs to work in both ways, with you next to it or without you. So this is in a nutshell what a poster presentation looks like. And in terms of what a poster should look like, in my opinion, and the way it should function, is that it should be an eye grabber first, and then a conversation starter. Because picture yourself in this poster session. There are 100 posters, like 4 or 5 rows, lots of them, really. You'll never be able to look at all of them, no way. So you need to choose which one do you look at. And you look from a distance and you're like, oh, this one stands out. Not because I can read it, because I'm still too far to read it. But just visually, it has something that grabbed my attention. So I'm going to walk towards that poster and see what it is about. And then as you get closer, you can read the title and start to understand really what it is about. And then you see the friendly face of the presenter, and you keep walking towards the person and start a conversation and ask, hey, tell me what your poster is about. Looks interesting. And this is how it should work.
Yes. And what I'm not hearing you say is that it is meant to be a giant wall of text that is just a copy and paste of a journal article. I'm hearing something very different. I'm hearing eye-catching, interesting, from a distance, and conversation starter. And I think based on the poster sessions I've seen, that is forgotten or not known by a lot of people. So I think kind of what you just said is like really insightful and helpful, because I don't really see that achieved in a lot of poster sessions.
Yeah, in fact, I said this is what it should be like, but the real experience that people really live at every conference on this planet is very different to this. Because the reality is that you go to this poster session and they all look alike, nothing stands out, and you basically need to choose, okay, which wall of text do I dare tackling?
Right. It feels like a chore. Which one do I have to read while standing there, having the person stare at me while I read their poster?
Rather than inviting you, rather than stimulating your curiosity, these posters kind of put you off, which is exactly the opposite of what the presenter wants. So this is why when I teach poster design, the first thing I say is, okay, put every pre-existing thought or idea around poster into this mental box. Put double strength duct tape, put a chain around it, attach it to a very heavy weight, and chuck it off a bridge.
I love that so much.
Because we need to start fresh.
Yeah, fresh start. Seriously. I totally hear that. And I mean, I honestly agree. And I think that, like, I don't know how, if you've heard this or if you can sort of understand this, but I think maybe a lot of people might have that kind of negative experience with poster sessions where it's just wall of text everywhere, and people do kind of feel like it's kind of a chore. They're not really loving it. And maybe that's why I often hear people who they actually submitted a proposal to speak at the conference, to do a presentation, like a slide presentation or an oral presentation, but that didn't get accepted. And so they were sort of offered to do a poster instead, which, you know, so I've heard from some people that it almost feels like a poster is less than or not as good for their reputation as a presentation is. And so I'm just curious what your reaction is to that, and if you've heard that too.
Of course, yes. Oh, look, for my PhD supervisor always told me, oh, if you get a poster presentation, it's not worth going to the conference. Honestly, that's an extreme view. Ooh, and okay. I don't agree with that.
All right.
So there is some truth in saying that an oral presentation is more prestigious for the simple reason that there is a very limited number of speaking slots at the conference. You know, the conference might go for 3 or 4 days. It's just this many hours, this many sessions. So there's a physical limit, right, in how many people can get an oral. But of course, there's way more people attending the conference than that. So poster presentations are the alternative to allow everyone to get a chance. And of course, it can be a bit frustrating if you aim for an oral and you get a poster. But what people often miss is that it's still very much worth it to go to the conference, because a well-made poster can produce amazing results, just like an oral presentation can. But the thing is that if you go to a conference with a wall of text poster that puts people off, well, of course, it's going to be a bad experience, and you go back home thinking, oh, what did I get out of this conference? Nothing. I got one, maybe 2 business cards in my pocket. I don't even remember who these people are, and it will feel like a waste of time and money. But it doesn't have to be that way. A well-designed poster and a strategically thought way of handling that poster session can give diametrically opposite results. And I do have success stories in mind which exist.
Yes, I was just about to ask if you can give an example, because examples are always helpful. So please do share.
Okay, sure. Will be useful if in the editing we can pop this poster onto the on the video so people understand what we're looking at here. But essentially, what I have in mind is what we did for my fiance. So we took her paper, we made a graphical abstract that looked like a comic strip.
Oh, I love comic strips in science communication.
I know it's something a bit out there. Not every researcher is comfortable with that, but she was brave. And so she went ahead with it, and she loved it so much that she slapped it onto her poster and went to a conference with that. So the poster was a pretty standard looking poster, with the only difference that like a third of the space was occupied by this big comic strip. And so the poster, this made the poster look unique, different, and special. And the amount of attention it attracted blew everyone's mind. So on that comic strip, we drew a character that looks like a female James Bond, which resembles the researcher.
Oh, nice.
So what happened at that conference is that even before the poster session started, random people asked her, hey, is that you on that comic strip looking like a female James Bond?
Oh my goodness.
And she said, yeah, that is me.
Oh my God.
And that was not even poster session time yet. It was just before, when people were drinking coffee, during a break, walking around the posters to having a look. And that's the one that stood out. And so I wrote it down because I don't want to miss anything. But basically, what she got out of this conference is an invite to be an editor of a book by Springer Nature, which she now completed. A new collaboration, which led to a new lab visit, a new joint paper, and winning a new joint grant with a foreign collaborator, and even an invite to create a children's book about biofilms. So all of this, can you believe, all of this came out of one poster presentation?
Oh my goodness. Then that was 5 things if I was keeping track. And talk about being memorable, talk about being good for your career, talk about being good for your reputation. You're checking all the boxes there with a visual poster that involved a comic. That's awesome. Wow.
The trick was being unique and different,
and
also a bit fun. Because, who said that posters need to be boring and serious all the time? Being brave pays off. And this was such a clear example. I couldn't believe it. Like when she called me after the conference, hey, you won't believe what happened. People recognized me randomly saying, hey, are you the female James Bond? And from there, a lot of conversation started, which led to very tangible career benefits.
And I like how you said it was fun. And, a lot of times when I'm helping people with presentations, I'll suggest to make it a little fun, make it a little different, unique, stand out. And a lot of people are really scared to do that in a conference setting. Like that definitely seems to be sort of one setting where scientists and researchers are really scared to do it. So just the fact that, like, look at what you said, they were fun and unique and different, and look at all the professional opportunities that opened up to your fiance. I mean, I love that story.
I love it too. I tell it to at every training workshop we provide, because it's such a good example.
I could see why.
We need to get over this idea that a poster session presentation is not worth it.
Yes.
It can be so worth it if you do it well, if you do it smart.
Yes, exactly. I agree 100%. Okay, so clearly doing a poster is a good idea. So now I have some questions about actually creating a poster and designing one. And I want to start with software, because everybody's always asking me what I use to create presentations. So I'm curious if that's a common question that you have too. Like, what software do you use to create that?
Absolutely. It is a common question for sure. And I think
what do you recommend?
Like, people get a bit too obsessed with software, when in reality what matters most is the principles of graphic design and communication that you should follow. Because you can have the most advanced software out there, but if you do it randomly, if you don't follow any principle, it will still look terrible. So software, if all you can use is PowerPoint, fine, stick to PowerPoint. There's nothing wrong with it. Change the slide size to an A0, and now you're making a poster. That's simple.
Oh, it's that simple? A0? I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, typically posters are A0 or smaller. I've never seen a bigger one.
Well, there you
and
go.
It's always better to downsize rather than to upsize, because you might get a loss of resolution if you upsize it. So if you're unsure, start big, like an A0, and then you can make it smaller if needed. So PowerPoint is just fine. Then for e-posters, I think Canva is perfect because it allows you to essentially publish mini web pages. And so you can turn your poster into something that looks like a web page that you experience by scrolling. And because it's done on Canva, it automatically adjusts to mobile. So if somebody's looking at your poster on the phone, they can still find it nicely laid out and readable. While if you have a giant PDF and somebody's watching it on their phone, it's like pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom.
Yeah.
It's just not a good experience. So I think Canva is the way to go for e-posters. For printed posters, then, well, if you want something open source, Inkscape. However, I find it a bit clunky, in my opinion. I think that a much better alternative is Affinity Designer.
I love Affinity
which
Designer.
I know you also love. Affinity Designer, it costs like what, $100 one off, and you have it for life. While something like Adobe Illustrator, you need to pay every month a lot of money.
Forever. For the rest of your life.
Adobe Illustrator is worth it if your institution is already paying that for you. And that is the case for some universities, but not for all. So I think if it's up to you, and if you want a full-fledged graphic design software, but you don't have unlimited cash, I think Affinity Designer is probably the best guess. Yeah. If you want something simpler, instead, just stick to PowerPoint or Canva.
There, on Twitter, the Twitter sphere, there's been a few interesting debates that happened, and the most recent one, as far as I know, was, I think, #Postergate. I could be wrong about the hashtag, but basically someone was sort of in what seemed like possibly a snobby tone. You never really know with tweets, I guess, but they were kind of like, I just found out that people use PowerPoint for posters, and Twitter exploded. So, and a lot of people were sort of like, PowerPoint is awesome for posters. So here we have Dr. Tullio Rossi also confirming PowerPoint can actually make awesome posters. And it's just a matter, it's knowing the principles that really matter, not the software.
The problem is not PowerPoint, is how people used it extensively.
Thank you. Which, just FYI, I say the same thing for presentations.
I have a theory that Microsoft really did a disservice to the world by having when you click on the color tool, the older versions of PowerPoint or Microsoft Word and so on, they will open a preview, like a little table where you can select colors, and they were all very strong, very saturated.
Yeah.
And so people with no design knowledge would just assume that that's a color. That's fine. That's what I need. And then they put a saturated red next to a saturated green, and then it's like, oh.
Yep.
And so I think Microsoft has some responsibility in that, because they should have designed that better.
Yeah.
They fixed it in the later versions of PowerPoint. But if you go back a few years, you will find that the default colors were pretty terrible.
They were awful. They were terrible. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think people just used those and had terrible results. And it's kind of the same thing for the smart art and the clip art and all of that, Sometimes the default offered by Microsoft is not the best.
Oh yeah, most of them are actually bad. I would even go and say, if you take my training, you're pretty much like, here's how to not use any of the defaults and do this instead. So the defaults, I agree, like they don't really set people up for success. And even a few years ago, PowerPoint didn't even let you type in the hex code of a color, which is, I mean, if you're going to be designing something nice and unique, being able to do the hex code, that sped things up and made things a lot easier. So they have been adding better features, but still those defaults aren't always great, which is why you need some training. You need some help with knowing what to do and knowing those principles, because PowerPoint's not setting those up as the default.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you need to go beyond the defaults and actually learn the thinking behind it. And only then you can make a good poster or a good presentation.
For sure. Yeah.
But people love shortcuts, right?
They do, totally. Which everybody's busy. I get it. So it would be nice if PowerPoint had better defaults. I do agree, but yeah. So, okay. What is maybe the biggest myth about posters? The sort of number one thing that they need to unlearn if they want to create an awesome award-winning poster that gets them all these professional opportunities?
Okay, I think the biggest one, and also the easiest one to solve, is the concept that you should put your abstract on your poster. And I've seen this idea. I've seen it follow like a dogma in Asia a lot. In some parts of the world they do it, some parts they don't, but there's definitely a good chunk of this planet that just follows this as a dogma without asking, should we do this or not? And a poster should be the visual version of your abstract, with some bells and whistles like the graphs and graphics, illustrations, and so on. So if the poster is the visual version of the abstract, it doesn't make any sense to have a 200-word block of text right at the top, which you already know nobody's going to read. So my recommendation in terms of word count for a poster is max 250.
For the whole poster.
The whole I know.
Did everybody hear that? 250 words for the whole poster.
I made a few people fall off their chairs. but it can be done.
Yes,
I've
it
done
can.
it. My students did it. It works.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put your abstract on your poster, there is your word budget
That's
gone.
it. That's done.
Yeah. So please, let's stop this. There's no reason why we should put the abstract on the poster, because the poster is the visual version of the abstract. Full stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and again, thinking back to what you said in the beginning of the sort of purpose of a poster, eye-catching, conversation starter, reading an abstract on a poster, usually again, while the person is staring at you, that's not a conversation starter. So even if you just always go back to that goal that you were talking about, is this eye-catching? Is this a conversation starter? It can help you sort of see how some of these habits or common dogmas that exist, you can sort of start to question that and be like, but is this actually a conversation starter? No, definitely not.
Definitely not. Please, everyone listening, promise
Please.
me you're going to stop putting your abstract on the poster.
Never again.
If you get one thing out of today's video, I hope it's this one.
There you go. Yeah, that's just a lot of text all at once. Okay. So what about another thing I'm curious is what's the number one question that you get about how to design a scientific poster that you just want to make sure that you answer today? So in addition to the number one takeaway being, don't put your abstract on the poster, like, is there anything else that you just want to make sure people hear before they finish watching this interview?
Yes. So the question everyone should ask themselves when they design a poster is, how do I make my poster stand out? Because remember, at that poster session, there will be hundreds of posters. How do I make mine stand out? And it's not going to be having a lot of words and paragraphs that is going to make it stand out, or data tables with p-values, because nobody's going to go through those.
The worst.
So what is it? It is visuals. Because we evolved as hunter-gatherers, chasing the antelope, not reading. So our brain processes visuals way faster than it processes text. That's why when you drive, there are street signs using iconography and not words. Simple as that. You know, it takes a split second to understand the meaning of an icon, but it takes much longer to read that same meaning if it is written out in text. Yep. So you should use the same idea to your advantage on your poster. How do you make your poster stand out? Place some big, easily recognizable visual related to your research, even loosely. It doesn't have to be bang on about your project, because your project might be about something super specific, just loosely related. So let's say if you do research on the physiology, some very specific aspect of the physiology of a shark, just have a shark.
Exactly. You're
That's
right.
it. Just have a shark.
Just have a shark.
Maybe the right species, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. The purpose of that visual is to stand out and be that eye catcher. Yep. So that when there's all posters that look like walls of text, yours is the only one with the shark. Like, oh, that looks way more interesting than all these other ones. I'm gonna check that one out. Yeah.
Well, and I like your example of traffic signs because, yeah, I mean, imagine if all of the yield signs were the word yield, you know, that would definitely take longer to process while you're driving. But also, I think, you know, a common question that I know I get, and I'm guessing you do because you work in an international context, is, well, how do I make this, you know, still something that people who might not speak the same language, or, you know, their first language is different than mine or different than what's on this poster? Visuals can often help with that. And so I see sort of two benefits of visuals: faster to process, but also addressing some of that concern. Is that accurate though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even imagine you got somebody that can't read very well. Maybe they have low eyesight.
Yep.
If you have, a large font size, minimal text, and lots of visuals, that person will have a much better experience than a poster where they literally can't even read the body text.
Yep.
And there is no visual anywhere that makes them understand what it is about. So yeah, try to also design your poster from the point of view of the viewer, because that's the other thing. It's easier to design a poster where you just dump your paragraph there, dump your graphs, all of your tables, everything, and you don't put the effort to make anything new. You just use what you already have. Well, that's really lazy and selfish. That's not what the viewer that is looking at this for the first time wants.
That's right. Selfish. Strong word, but it's true. It's so true.
It's selfish, just like it's selfish to put 100 words on a slide.
That's
just
right.
Copy pasting on a slide.
Yep.
Whatever is written on your research paper is lazy and selfish.
Yeah. It's
there is one poster that I use in my workshop as an example of lazy. And this person, so you see the poster, it doesn't, you don't understand right away what's going on here. You just see there's something weird, and then you notice that the logo of the institution is repeated 6 times. There's this blue bar and the logo repeated 6 times.
That's
and then
right.
I asked the people, all right, can you spot the lazy person here? What did they do?
I know what they did. I know.
They just took the slides and slapped them on one next to each other, pretending, voila, I made a poster. No, don't do that.
Not acceptable.
What image gives about yourself? Like if you go to a conference hoping to maybe land a new position, maybe you land a new postdoc, and you have a poster that looks like that, well, would you hire somebody that looks that lazy? I wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, that's not going to help your reputation. That's not going to help you stand out. It's, again, not going to check off any of the boxes you've been talking about. Yeah.
I get very into this topic.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I'm being a bit over the top. But
no, I don't think so. Well,
I really believe in this stuff.
Yeah. Well, because it's about also making it like it's good for you, the presenter, basically. But it's also good for people who are attending the conference. Like you basically said it. It's also about making things more accessible and making your research reach more people. So it's something that I think is worth getting passionate about and really caring about, because I think this kind of stuff actually matters. And I don't think we should accept copying and pasting your like literal slides and just making that the poster. Like, that's not okay.
Think this way, like with the old way of doing posters, which is ineffective, objectively ineffective. The advancement of science proceeds at speed 1.
Sure.
If everyone instead designed posters well, and so that poster session will be like a melting pot of ideas and exchange, what would be the speed of the advancement of science?
Right.
At least 3.
Right. Exactly.
Because every year there are hundreds of conferences with hundreds of posters being presented, and they're all poorly presented for the vast majority. So the exchange of ideas is not really happening the way it should. People are not having this good experience with poster sessions. If we just learned all how to do it better, we would really boost the advancement of science globally.
I agree.
It will have a ginormous impact.
Would explode.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. So hopefully we are getting people fired up and they're like, I want to do better. I want to create better posters. What do I do? And maybe they do something like Google how to create better posters. And they're probably going to come across something that is very popular. And I feel like if we don't talk about it, people will feel like something very big in the poster world is missing. So what I am all leading up to is the whole hashtag better poster, Mike Morrison stuff.
Okay. So I think Mike Morrison achieved something really important, which was to let everyone realize that, yes, the traditional way is, we have an issue with the traditional way and we need to do it better.
Yes.
And
opened a lot of eyes to that.
On this, I completely agree with him.
Yeah.
However, I think that his template is a bit half cooked. It is a step in the right direction, but there are a few important elements missing. And also the hierarchy of importance, I don't necessarily agree with. So in his template, you have this giant take-home message in the middle, a giant QR code, and then all the rest has been moved to 2 side columns, which is a bit of an odd arrangement, really, because if you want to go from one side to the next, you find, moving your eyes back and forth a lot, which I find weird.
Yep. Agreed.
The main issue is that he never mentioned anything about visuals.
Yeah. That was like, what? It hurt.
No.
Yeah.
A low-hanging fruit to improve that template to just move. Well, first of all, that QR code doesn't need to be that big, so make the QR code bigger, pop there a visual that relates to the research, like I was discussing. If you do research on the physiology of sharks, put a shark on it. And the take-home message, big, fine. I don't think at that point, with the visual, because the thing is, if you expect people to read that take-home message, it's not going to work that way. People will look at visuals first, and then read, but not the other way around. So you need that visual to grab the attention from a distance. Then they will read the take-home message. Then they might get closer and have a look at the rest. So I think, yes, it's a step in the right direction, but there are some flaws with the template, which, however, could be fixed. But I think we should give him credit that he really attracted a lot. He made a lot of noise and really made the whole scientific community realize, we have a problem here and we should do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, that did such a service and woke so many people up to how we do need to be better about communicating our science and research. And I mean, I had almost nobody even asking me about this kind of stuff until that. And then, it opened a lot of eyes, which is so awesome and a huge first step, an important, like a necessary first step for increasing the quality of all science communication for posters. So yeah, but I agree that the visual aspect could be improved in the template. So
also the layout. I'm not a fan of splitting the content in 2 columns. That's not how our eyes work.
Yep Agreed. So speaking of that, that's about knowing things like visual hierarchy and graphic design skills. And you kind of touched on this earlier, that the software doesn't matter. It's about knowing these things. That's a specific example of what you were talking about when you said knowing the principles, right? Knowing visual hierarchy, knowing the importance of visuals, knowing where to place things. That's kind of what you were talking about. And you mentioned earlier that you're sort of full service. You teach people how to design their own posters. You also will design posters for people. So when do you think it makes sense for somebody to learn poster design skills, like to DIY it, versus when they should hire somebody like you? Like how do people make that decision?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, if you're a graduate student, you should do it yourself. Learn it, you'll have the skill for the rest of your career. It will be a good time investment. If instead you're, let's say, mid-career, late career, you might have better ways to spend your time, like begging for money on a high level,
Right.
grant writing. Maybe you have some spare budget hanging somewhere, you can hire somebody to do the poster for you. Yeah, but I think given that most posters are made by either graduate students or early career researchers, I think people should attempt to do it themselves. And then perhaps hire an illustrator if they need something very specific. Like, let's say, if you want to show a detail about the anatomy of the gills of this shark. And of course, you're not going to find that on the internet, copyright free, and then no chance. So you might need to either draw it yourself if you're up for the challenge, or hire an illustrator to do that for you.
So I think that's good to mention. It's not necessarily all or nothing. You can hire someone to do part of it, the visual part or the core visual part. So that's a good,
you
good
can
point.
I mean, everyone can do the layout, the text. I mean, as of the researcher, you're the best qualified person to tell that story in a written format, right? You can also arrange the layout and the colors, but then perhaps the illustration is too much of a challenge for you, and that's totally fine. You know, nobody expects researchers to be illustrators.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might want to hire somebody for that part.
And
But,
that is something you all do too, right? Do you also do? Oh, okay. All right. Nice.
Yeah, so we do poster design as a whole, the whole poster, or just the illustrated bit if you need.
Nice.
What I you know, there's only this many people we can help this way. We can help a lot more people with training.
Yes.
And so that's why I created an online course that teaches researchers in a very affordable way how to make an amazing scientific poster. And not just a good one that will win a prize.
Yes.
Because it's so good.
Yes.
And so basically all the things we discussed today and much more, basically all my knowledge on this subject is now condensed into this online course, which goes for about 3 hours. And it covers everything you need to learn when it comes to poster design. And honestly, if every graduate student on this planet followed it, it will be a better world, and we will really speed up the advancement of science. I have no doubt it will be the case, because then with better designed posters, people will have more conversations, more exchange of ideas, which is, you know, the essence of a conference, more networking, and just, you know, new ideas will rise as a result.
Yes. And just for anybody watching, I actually took the course and I loved it. So I fully support it. And yeah, it's really short. You can do it in a day. And, you know, I learned some things, especially about storytelling in there. And I highly recommend it. And I loved it so much. And, you know, I do have a lot of people asking me for help with posters, but I don't do that, and I never will. So Tullio and Animate Your Science were kind enough to create a special link so that you can get a little bit off the course. And we will post that link in the description box below, because seriously, if you do posters, I agree, learn the skills. They're going to help you not just for the rest of your career in posters, but these are just general design skills that will help you in other things too. So to me, it was totally worth it, which is why I love the course and wanted to set something like this up. So be sure to check out the description box for that link. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about the course, or just anything about posters?
Oh, you raised a good point. Like the learnings of this course, which is focused on posters, will also be applicable to things like graphical abstracts, which are becoming more and more important in every researcher's publishing life. and also slides, because, you know, when it comes to visual communication, also slides tend to follow similar principles, right? Usually I find that following the mantra less is more can be applied to anything visual, be it a slide or be a poster or anything. Typically the researchers put too much on it. And it's about what can we take out? A bit like a game of Jenga. What can we take out without compromising the structure? So, and that can be applied to anything. So it will be very valuable for every graduate student or early career researcher, or even mid-career, because then you could maybe identify mistakes in your students' posters.
That's true.
That's the other thing, you know, if the young generation changes but the older generation doesn't, then there will be some conflicts, and you know, you make this amazing post and then your supervisor's like, no, this is strange. I'm not familiar with this format. Or something that I've seen happening is you go to a conference with a great poster and the judging panel is full of people with gray hair. And then they don't get it. And you get kind of penalized for that reason. That's not great, really. It's a shame. I think it's still worth it, even if you miss out on the award, to have a you know, let's call it an innovative poster. It's still a good idea because it's still a more effective poster. And that's really what the conference experience should be about. Still, it's nice to go home with an award.
It is, definitely. But the status quo stifles creativity sometimes, and a lot of times even. So, but that's not a reason to not do it, you know, still do it. So it's effective, like you said, and it's just something you're proud of, something you would be proud to show. So, but yeah, I think that's a reason I would recommend that not just grad students take this training, and that everyone takes them, because I've actually seen that too with slide presentations, where some of the biggest barriers grad students especially have is their mentors are not caught up to speed, and their mentor will say, no, this is, we don't like this, do this instead, except that's an ineffective presentation and an inaccessible presentation. So everyone needs to learn these skills, whether they're grad student or farther along in their career. So that's what I think anyway. All right.
As a final thought, anyway, I have a very good track record of students that actually do win poster prizes. There's one of them that won 2 prizes at the same conference. The first prize and the People's Choice Prize.
Look at that.
So as long as you don't get the gray-haired person on the panel, you actually be winning.
You know, haters gonna hate, right? Oh, all right. This has been so insightful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this with us. And I should have mentioned in the beginning that actually we're going to be doing this. We'll be doing another interview for your channel where I'll be talking about slide presentations. So be sure to, you know, check that out too. And the links, all the links are going to be in the description box, where you can learn more about Animate Your Science and the course and all that good stuff. So make sure that you check out those links, and be sure to go over to Tullio's channel or Animate Your Science's channel as well. And, you know, like and subscribe over there too, and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much it for me. Any sort of like final statement, Tullio, from you?
Go and win and make standing posters. Break the mold.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Ciao.